All right, it is 10 o'clock, so we will get started. Good morning and welcome to the first session of the day, Student-Based Activity Ideas for Math 154 Quantitative Reasoning. Our presenter today is Professor Jennifer Stoudt from John Tyler Bright Point Community College. If you have any questions for Professor Stoudt during the session, please feel free to enter those into the chat at the bottom of the Zoom room screen, and we will address them at the end of the talk. On that note, I'll hand it over to Jennifer.
All right, thanks, Kristen. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Today, we are going to be looking at student-centered ideas for Math 154. I am an instructor at John Tyler Community College, and I do teach 154, obviously. I don't know about the population at every community college, but I know for us, some of the issues that we see with 154 students is that sometimes they're a little bit afraid to show their knowledge in the math that we're working with, and they're embarrassed if they don't know something they think they should know. Sometimes they can even space out if the lecture takes too long and they end up not really paying attention, or they don't know what's going on if you spend too much time talking. So one of the things that I feel like works really good for me is to really spend as much time doing student-centered activities as I possibly can. And so today the goal is to give you guys some ideas. I mean, I'm sure that you too spend time coming up with group activities and such, but I have a couple in my arsenal that I utilize, and it really can be used in any math class because most of these things can be used with any math curriculum, honestly, not even math, but these are just some things that I use consistently throughout the semester in 154, as well as some of my other math classes. And so I'm going to give you guys an example of each one and give you a little bit of insight to how I implement that, and hopefully give you some ideas to do something a little bit differently if you haven't already done these things. So the goal for today is to talk about around the room activities, which is the most basic of all the group activities. And I'm sure many of you have had some practice doing that. Scavenger hunts, which are another version of getting up and moving around the room, but maybe slightly more complicated in its design. Instantaneous feedback activities with technology, which is something I've really only started playing around with in the last year or so. And I've gotten some really great ideas on that. And then the last one is escape rooms. I typically only do one of these a semester because they are a little bit more lengthy and a little bit tougher to design. But honestly, just like anything else, once you make it, you have it forever. So it is worth spending a little time during breaks or summer, whenever you feel like giving yourself more time. So the first one, around the room, super easy to make. Basically, you can take any old problem set, and instead of having them sit at their desk boringly and maybe work with the person next to them, you can get them moving around the room. It really is a huge difference to just giving them a problem set, even if it's just 5 or 6 questions and it's only like a 10 or 15 minute activity. It really leads to students interacting with each other and becoming more friendly. I've noticed in the live setting classes, students have become much more friendly and made little groups, and honestly some of them have become friends and started studying together as a result of doing these activities, because they're like, hey, do you know how to do this one? And they start talking. So it's a great way to do that. Grading is really easy with around the room activities because they can walk around while you sit there with your grade book and basically check off what they're doing. I usually have a big marker and I just keep running around with my answer key and I'm check, and then answering questions as we go. So let me go ahead. I might have to change my share screen for a second because I think I had it on PowerPoint. Give me 1 second here. My goodness, all my stuff is going around here. All right, can y'all see my screen for this?
We see you're cute, what I believe might be your daughter.
Okay, hold on. There we go. Can you see it now?
Yes.
See it now.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is basically the design that I use for around the room. I usually use Google Slides, and basically I just make the slides with the numbers on them. So this is one that I use for logic, and you know, the questions are there. I usually keep an answer sheet at the bottom of the slides, and this is what I usually check students work on as they go around the room. If I don't have time to make an answer sheet, clearly I can just do that. But yeah, so that is the first thing there. Does anyone have questions on around the room? I mean, that's the most basic of them all. So no questions on that? Okay. All right. So the second one I want to talk about is scavenger hunts. So these are a little bit more, I guess, designed because what happens is students start at any problem. So again, it's around the room usually, but what happens is there's an answer in the corner of the page. And so what they do is they kind of bounce around to whichever one they started with, and they find their answer somewhere else around the room. So these are really cool because instead of me having to run around and check every answer to make sure they got it right, they're actually self-checking as they go. So this is another great way to do things. I love these for hybrid classes because that way, if I have some students live and some on Zoom, the ones that are live are moving around the room, and then the ones on Zoom can be in breakout rooms, and they're actually able to kind of self-check themselves so that I don't have to constantly hop back and forth to Zoom versus live. They can kind of be operating on Zoom and working together while I'm kind of facilitating the live version. So it's a really good activity for multi-modality type classes. I usually make these in Google Slides. And so I'm going to show you an example of that. Y'all could still see my screen, right? I'm paranoid.
Yeah, we see
Yes.
the fun.
All right, cool. So for these, the answer is in the corner. So y'all see there's a question, but then the answer to another question is in the corner. So as they move around the room, they can see what they're doing and where that answer takes them. And then if they don't see their answer, that's usually when they reach out to me and say, I don't see my answer. What am I doing wrong? So it's really a great way for me to focus the most time on answering questions while students, and I do have them work together on these, but you know, you could also not assign groups and just let them go. You know, they kind of make their own groups without you having to assign them groups. So this is a great way to get students interacting with each other and asking each other for help. So I really like this one for that reason. The next one that I'm going to show you is a little more complicated. This is one, and notice that I put this as a copy, and that's because this is an example where they would make a copy. So I'm going to just show you. You click make a copy, and I don't know why it's so small. There we go. I must have zoomed in on something here. Yeah. Okay. So basically with this one, and it'll take a second to load here. This is one where students have multiple pages to complete. So as you could see, they have questions, and this one is self-checking because they put their answers in the boxes, and then a clue pops up. So for example, if I just put in a random answer, the clue that they get is wrong. And I usually make these actual English words like great or good job. And so they know they got it wrong. Now, when they get this right, they go to a bit.ly link, and then it hops them to a second sheet. And then what I usually do is there's multiple pages, and I kind of separate them by skill set. So I'll put them, you know, depending on like what topics, like this one was for a mixture of different things. So there was like annuities, there was loans. And so this one had different themes for each page. These are a little more complicated to make, but really they have the same feel of self-checking. I like this one a lot to do with students so that they don't have to move around the room, but are still working in groups. So for example, if you have the hybrid situation, again, this is a really easy way to have everybody working in tandem. I've had really great results with it. With this example, what I usually do for grading purposes is I'll have students take a screenshot of the last piece. Like when they get to the very end, there's like a fun puzzle, and they just take a picture of that, and I can make an assignment in Canvas for them to upload. So this one works really good. I usually do one of these a semester, and I've had really good feedback on them. The students have said they liked them and that it was a little more fun than just your basic solving problems and writing them on paper kind of thing. So yeah, and I do have, if anyone has, at the end of the session, I can definitely explain a little bit more about the technology behind this and give you guys the full activity so that you can use this and edit it as you want. All right, and then the next one that I'm going to show you is instantaneous feedback with technology. So these ones I feel like are a lot of fun when you need practice. You may or may not have enough time in class to do all the problems. Like what I found is sometimes I'll do some of these and then students have to finish this up on their own. But what I like about it is it's just less boring than a worksheet, but it still accomplishes the same goal of getting them to do more practice. Typically, I will try to help them in the beginning understand the concepts, but I try to get into this as quickly as possible and not spend too much time talking. I'd rather either pause the class if I'm noticing a problem that like lots of students are having problems with, you know, for example, number 3, let's say number 3 is a little challenging for them. I'll stop the class and be like, hey, so some people are asking me about blah, blah, blah. And then I'll, you know, have everybody talk for a few minutes about that and then move back into doing it independently. But these are really fun to do. I will say that I am not technologically savvy enough to create my own templates. I have really been using a lot of pre-made templates and then just editing them. I know we hate, you know, having to spend money to do things, but Teachers Pay Teachers has some really great ones that are only a couple of dollars. And I found a package recently that was like, it was like 5 or 6 different templates and it was only a few bucks. And I was able to make so many different versions using that I was like, you know what, I'm fine with that. I understand how to make them. The technology behind it is very complicated, but it's easy to use once you have the template. So let me show you an example of that. So I have 2. I have one that is a portrait pixel one, and then another that's an imposter one. I'll show you both. So for this one, I'm making a copy because I wanted to show you the version that the students would get. We'll just give it a second. So here's what the students would see. They have, and it takes a little bit to load here. Yeah, there you go. So what they see is an Excel sheet, and I'm going to zoom in a little so y'all can see it better. So they have this empty picture here. And as they answer the questions, if they answer correctly, the picture will fill up with certain boxes of color. And eventually it makes an entire picture. And of course, as you can see, it's self-checking because if they get it wrong, nothing appears on the right side. So this is another great way to take problems and make it a little more fun and, you know, the group work aspect of it. I use this one for dimensional analysis, and it works really good. I would say the only thing with these is when the students are typing in their answers, you have to be really specific about how to type it in, because if there's anything off, like if you have a $ in your answer and they don't type the $, it's not going to register. So you just have to be really careful with explaining in your directions how you want them to type things. But other than that, these are a lot of fun to do. So that is the first one. And then the second one that I have, this is another version of the same thing. They type in their answers, and then once the answers are correct, it starts to fill in the boxes. And then once they get to the end, it tells them, you know, the answer, and then you can just have them take a picture of that and upload that to get their answers. So that is that. All right, so we still have plenty of time to talk about the design and everything. Does anyone have anything they want me to specifically talk about or go back and discuss?
Jen, how do you do the Google Sheet, like the annuity page where it comes up with the word? Is that probably not that hard to make?
Yeah, no, they're actually pretty easy to do. So let me go back to that one. I could show you that. So the way that it works is, so there's actually, with all these Google Sheets, there is a hidden sheet. So if you go to view and you go to hidden sheet, this is where the answers are. And so I actually make the words white so that if anyone actually is tech savvy enough to go finding that, they'll be thrown off by no letters. But as you can see, if I change the color, these are all the answers. So you can make any version of this that you want by changing the answer. So you see, this is question 1, and that's the answer to question 1. So if they answer with this number, it will give them that clue. And if they answer wrong, then it'll give them that. So this is kind of the, the yes or no version. These are the right answers. And then this is anything that they type in wrong. So if I typed in that answer right there into the clue, it would have given me annuities, which is the right one. And then, so the way that you build it is you basically edit that sheet however you want. You can change your questions however you want them to be. And whatever sheet you want them to go to next, you just make the next sheet. And I used a bit.ly to do this, but if you want to use some other method, you can. I just found that bit.ly was the easiest way to do it. I went to the bit.ly website and I made a link to the next slide so that way, if they go to their URL and they type in bit.ly/ and then I had made it annuities are the best. It now takes them to the next one. So it takes them to this, and then now they answer the next. So it's the same concept all over again of they put in their answers, they get a clue, and then once they finish this, it will take them to the next page. And then for me, the last page was just a puzzle. It was a fun little puzzle. And so when they do that, it will be done. That's the end. So this one is pretty cool to do if you have time to make it. It definitely takes a little more work in the forefront, but as I said, I made this once, and every semester I've reused it, and I haven't had to really do anything to it. So it's really like a work up front, and then it's good to go. So other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Your students have computers in the classroom? Is that
Good
correct?
question. So what I do is I do tell them to bring in any type of computer if they have one, or iPad. So many of them do bring their own. We do have a laptop cart, and I have had students borrow off of that if they needed to, but everything that I use is smartphone accessible. And what I found is that a lot of students who don't bring it in, they're able to just go, because you can use, we use Canvas. The Canvas app, you can open up anything from class, and they are all able to get everything on their phone, if not a computer. So I have found we've had very little issues with that in class, if it's a tech thing like this.
Jennifer, I do see there's a question in the chat box.
Oh, yeah.
How flexible are the answer forms, $, digits of accuracy, etc.?
Thanks, Bruce. So it does have to be exact, meaning like whatever you type in the answer box, they have to type it exactly like that. So as I was saying, like you really have to, the one thing that is a little bit of a challenge is you have to really tell the students up front how they should be putting in their answers. So, you know, for example, if it's money, I tell them, you know, it has to be 2 places to the right of the decimal because it's money and we want 2 places, or, you know, you have to put the dollar sign or don't put the dollar sign. For dimensional analysis, because there's units, you have to make the decisions. You want them to have units in their answer or not, and how should that be typed? So those pieces are a little bit of a hump, but as long as you're consistent and kind of explain that to them at the beginning, I've found that there's not problems. Once in a while, I do have a student who will come up to me and be like, I'm putting in the answer and it's not working. And usually I'm like, oh, that's because of this. And I usually explain that to them and then we're good. So very few problems with that. The only thing I will say is you have to know the answers, right? Like you have to know what they're supposed to be putting in. So you do have to make sure, like I usually type the answers and print out that sheet. And then I usually just keep that at my desk so that way I can be very quick about explaining to everyone how answers should be. And yeah, I could zoom in a little bit. So this is what that looks like. I could also pull up if you want, I could show you guys what the finished product looks like for, give me 1 second. I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment. I'll pull up what that other activity looked like, the one with the picture. Because I know the one that I showed you didn't have a picture, but I do have the answer key so I could show you what that looks like.
Jen, while you're pulling that up, I
Yep.
can say I've done the annuities pages with my own Math 154, and it does work well. I mean, but like you say, you do have to give them specific directions on that, entering the answer.
Yep.
And specific directions to make sure they type the words in all capital letters to go to the bit.ly page.
That's right.
And once they do the first one, I mean, they're pretty good at it, and know what's going on.
I think I can share it now. Can y'all see my answers here?
We see your baby.
Sorry, hold on 1 sec.
Man, I know you want to show her off because
I know
beautiful.
she is really cute. I do have
now,
to show
I will
her
say
off.
I did see an advertisement on TV for Gerber for the next Gerber baby, so you may want to enter.
All right, can you guys see it now? Did this work?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is what it looks like when it's all done. So if they put their answers in, so notice a couple of things, like for the money one, I had them put the dollar sign, and then in the directions of number 3, I said, type your answer as, and I put like dollar sign. And then, so I do kind of try to put instructions. For the dimensional analysis one, I did have them do it without units, which I know is a little frustrating because we really should be having them do that. But just for the sake of this activity, I did not. But yeah, so this is what it looks like when it's done. And yeah, so this is a crowd pleaser. This is the easiest one of the bunch, I think, because this one that I bought this from Teachers Pay Teachers, and the file for this has very clear directions with an answer sheet, and it says like, you know, hide this when you're done and then put your answers here. So these are like very user friendly. Like I think any instructor could make one of these in less than 20 minutes once you like understand the way they work and everything. It's very, very quick. And you could take anything like their homework assignments and just put these problems in here to do as extra practice, and it works really nice. Okay, other questions? Anything you want me to go back to or look at again? Okay, well, if there's no questions, I can go back here and just kind of explain a little bit further with some of the stuff with the technology aspects. So I'll just show you guys what I have, how I organize these type things. So for like the scavenger hunt, hang on one second. So this is how I organize the annuity scavenger hunt. So notice that I have the 3 pages so that I can go back and edit these. I have a key. So I made myself a key. So this is what I would bring into class. And the key has like all of the problems so that I can easily, help the students and know what the answers are. And the 3 pages can be edited. I have made other scavenger hunts exactly like this with different problems, and I've used it in completely different classes. So I made one of these for statistics a couple of years ago, and I literally just took this and edited the pages and then changed my bit.ly links, to match what I was doing. So that was the first one that I did. And I made another one in a different class for 161. So I've made several of these just by using this model. And I kept all the pages the same, but there are other, if you actually are interested in, spicing it up, there are other Google Sheet versions of this that are slightly different in their design, and you can incorporate that. So, if you feel like you really want to dive into how to do these because they're fun, there's a lot of stuff out there for that. I mean, I've left it at this because I felt like one thing was complicated enough. So I had all 3 of them be the same template, and it's just different questions. But yeah, there's other versions of this that you could do. And by the way, there's even better technology. Like on this sheet, I told my students to go to the bit.ly and they had to type it in, but there's actually in Excel a way to take the clues and have it become this code down here. And I am not good enough with Excel to know how to do that and make it populate, but there is a way to do that. And so that's even more advanced that you can, if you are good with Excel, you could figure that part out and put that in, but it's not necessary. I've taught my students how to go to the URL and type it in, and they've been fine with that. So yeah, so the scavenger hunts in the more complicated sense can do that for you, but there's also these scavenger hunts, which I have made like dozens of these. I have made a ton of these because they're so quick and just a way to get students to get up and move around the room and interact with each other. And it has been so nice to use these. So the scavenger hunt is this version is my personal favorite go-to for just everyday use. This is my favorite. And then the technology ones with like the pixels and all that, those are really cool for when I maybe don't have enough time in class to devote to walking around and using that extra time up. If I really just want to make something 15 or 20 minutes, I can use those because they're not having to get up and complete those, and then maybe do it outside of class if they need to, or just say it's not a big deal. If you don't finish, just do what you can. So that's how I operate that. Does anyone have other questions for me?
I do see another one in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Another from Bruce. Can you provide the links for where you bought the templates?
Sure, I can definitely do that. Yeah. So I'll put that in at the end because Teachers Pay Teachers has a ton of these. Like it's really addicting because if you go to Teachers Pay Teachers and you find all these templates that people have made, you're like, I don't have to spend 3 hours making a template and I can do something fun in class. Like, this is amazing. My sister actually asked for Christmas for Teachers Pay Teachers gift cards because she's crazy. I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm that crazy to start asking for gift cards, but yeah, so Teachers Pay Teachers has a lot of really cool stuff. I'll definitely provide the link for the ones I bought, because the one that I just showed you with the flamingo, that was a pack of, I want to say 4. It was like a flamingo, a dolphin, some kind of Easter bunny. There was like a whole bunch of them, and it came, and all of them are just like quick edit. So there's no need to learn crazy Excel technology to do this fun stuff in your class. You really can make one in a very short period of time.
Jennifer, you shared which activity is your favorite. I'm curious, is there a particular activity that you find your students enjoy most or are engaged with most?
I would say they love the picture pixels because they're always like so excited when the picture starts to develop. I feel like the first time I did them, there were students going like, like I heard them literally getting like excited because they saw the picture. And like, I heard one yell, oh, it's a dolphin, you know, like they get excited about that. And you would think like, oh, they're college, like this kind of stuff isn't as fun for them. That's like completely false. I think my college students actually are more excited about the quirky things than my high school students used to be. Cause like in high school, you know, they're too cool for school and they're like, oh, it's a dolphin. But like in college, they're like excited about it for some reason. So I would say that the college students really enjoy the pixel one. Also because I think that for my 154 students, I notice they get discouraged when they don't know something, you know, like they're quick to beat themselves up. And I also feel like they're unsure if they're right. And I feel like the instant feedback allows them to feel like, oh, I got this right. Yes. Cause it like instantly shows them that they got it right. And also I think that it gives them a little more confidence as they go. So I think that they like those the best, to be honest. The scavenger hunt with multi-page, they really like them, but I feel like they're a little intimidated by the multi-page. It's kind of one of those things where you have to train your students. Like you can tell an instructor who's used something multiple times because when you give them a new one, they know how to move right away because they've done it before, right? So like the first time you do one of those, you know, you would have to kind of guide them through the steps. But then if you've shown your students how to do one, the next time you go to do it, they're like, oh, I remember how to do this. And then they're like right into it. So it's kind of, you have to make the decision, do you want to incorporate these things into your course or not? Because it does take a little work up front to explain it. But yeah, I found that all of them have a place in different parts of the course.
Jenna, how often in the course are you doing one of these activities? Is it maybe like once a week, once every other week, once a unit, kind of like?
I would say for 154, it's about once a week. And I have different, you know, like I just showed you guys like 3 different versions, and then you can make even more of those. So I would say once a week I do something, because with 154, I found usually the schedule ends up being that one day is devoted more to learning the curriculum. So there's a little more direct instruction and then guided practice and then just like a little bit of group work. And then the second class tends to be more like, all right, let's dive into practice. And then that one can tend to be more of a practice class. But yeah, so I would say once a week I've got something going on, either the scavenger hunt or an around the room. Yeah, once a week.
It looks like something came into the chat. Did you see that?
Yes, I did. Natasha, the MDE courses definitely can use these. In fact, I worked on making some of these actual activities for MDE. I did actually use the same templates for several MDEs because we wanted to do exactly that. We wanted to spice up the curriculum a little bit and not make it as boring, you know, because we wanted the students to feel like that developmental work that they're doing is really beneficial and taking away from just that boring old worksheet and making it more student-centered. So yeah, we definitely can use these in MDE. So does anyone have any other questions? Because if not, I can go to Teachers Pay Teachers and show you guys. I feel bad. I'm like, here's my lesson where I'm showing you to go buy things. Oh yeah, the escape room. Oh yeah, okay, so the escape room. Let me show you the escape room. I totally forgot about my escape room. Okay, so the escape room, I have one of these that I made. I'll actually show you the one that I made for MDE because that one I was pretty proud of. Hang on one sec, sorry. Yeah, I think I put it in here. Shoot, now wait, hold on. I don't want you to have to watch me dig through it. Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, the MDE escape room. Give me 2 seconds. I will find that for you because the escape room was pretty cool. That one I actually used. Okay, so let me share my screen. There we go. Okay, so this one I did an escape room. And the way that the escape room works is I made a Google form. And the Google form basically is going to force you to type in the right codes in order to quote unquote break out. So let me just see if I can show you in a preview mode. Okay, so this is what students would see. This is the Google form. And so there are 3 sheets, and it was very similar to the scavenger hunt, but with this one, there were these 3 codes, and they have to type all 3 in exactly as it was stated, and then they basically break out. So that's how that one works. And if you notice in the Google form, all I had to do was basically write a question, and what you do is it's a short answer, and you basically put in these stipulations that the text has to contain, and you type in the code. And so it basically says still locked when they type, unless they type it right. And so when you're in preview mode, notice what happens is if they type in something that's not right, it says still locked. And so they can't submit until all 3 are typed in correctly. So this is the breakout room, and you can make these as fancy or not fancy as you want. So I'll just show you what I did. If you want to be fancier, I made like a web page. And this is, I know this, you're like, oh my God, now she's showing me web pages, but this is through Google, and it literally is super quick. And as I said, with anything, once you make one, like this was one that I've made 4 times. I've done it for geometry when I was a high school teacher as an SOL review. I made it again for AP stats when we were studying for the AP exam, and I've made several others along the way. And literally this is the same Google site that I've done every time. And so what I did was I embedded all of this on one page, and this is what I share with my students. So like when they go to this page, the Google form is embedded. Do y'all see that on the left side? Here, let me go. This is in edit mode. Let me go to the preview mode so that you can see. Wait, hold on a sec. Sorry. I'm going to show you the version that they would see. It's very similar. It's just like, you know, when I click on it, because I'm the owner, it looks a little bit different. Oh, that's why. Okay, duh. Publish, view published site. Okay, so this is what would happen if you guys clicked on this. So on the left, this is the Google form that I just showed you, and notice that it's got typing on it because I just typed that. But this is what you would give to them. And then on the right, these pictures are the links to the 3 pages. And when you click on it, notice that it says make a copy, because the share link I posted, I made it to be, it forces them to make a copy. So I provide just one thing to my students, and that is the link to this page. And so they can all complete this in a group setting. They can do it individually. It works really good for hybrid classes, because this is something that students at home on Zoom, or honestly, even if it's a asynchronous class, they can do this on their own. So this is a great way to get all students operating together. And so this one is clearly a lot more work. But as I said, this is really just like, what do you want to make out of it? Because you can just make the Google form. Like I have this Google form. There really is no need to have this unless you just want it to be one neat package, right? Like I like it to be one link to my students so it's less confusing. And so this is all they see and they're able to access all of them. Now, when you are in the edit mode for Google Sites, as you can see, this is how I did it. I made a page and then, this is basically just one text box. And then all you have to do is click this embed button or Drive. So I have my Google form in Drive. I had my 3 sheets in Drive. And then essentially all I did was put some pictures in and, add this in here. You can literally, if you take the time to just play with it for a little bit, you can make one of these in 15 or 20 minutes. I mean, I will say that the work for making the sheets takes a lot more time, right? So like the time it takes to create your Google Sheets that they're going to edit, like this is what it looks like. So this was in MDE. So this is the questions that they had. And as you can see, I'm not super creative because this is the exact same template I showed you for the scavenger hunt. But, as I said before, there's other versions of this. This is just what works for me and it's easy to do. And so I've used this over and over again, but this is what they would see. So the students would have this to do. Other questions? Oh, what's my calculator policy? So the calculator policy is scientific only. We're not allowed to use any graphing calculator. So that's what they would do. And for MDE, I'm not sure what is the rules for MDE. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think like for 154, they have scientific calculators. Other questions? Do I require students to show their work? So Patricia, there's 2 ways I've practiced doing this. Way 1 is, as I said before, they just have to take a picture of the final result. And like for the escape room, when they get the answer, that Google form, if you do the Google form, it will submit that, right? So like I would get an email of all the students or, the answer form of all the students who've completed it. But definitely, Patricia, I have had them take pictures of their work to make sure that they had work. I did that actually not too long ago with the pixel activity. I did a pixel activity with my 154 a couple weeks ago, and I had them upload a picture of the final result and a picture of their scrap. And what I did was I went through their scrap and I made comments if I saw anything that needed it, but I also just kind of looked at it to make sure that they had jotted down the work and all that. And, the beautiful thing about group activities is you see them working and they're working. So I don't actually need them to always upload so much because I was in the room while they were all sitting there talking about math. Like I was with them walking around. The uploading of scrap would probably also be better for a hybrid class because maybe the Zoom students, you want to see that they were doing the same thing that the live students were doing. But honestly, I developed like such good relationships with my 154 students while we complete these that I'm really able to more or less just give them all the check. They've done it. I watched them all doing it and I know that they were all there and present and working. So you can kind of make that decision based on your modality and how you were interacting with your students. So do I penalize them for not showing their work? If in a rare situation, the live students, someone seemed like they weren't really working, I guess I could penalize them. But for my live classes, I really kind of move around enough to make sure everybody's working. And I don't really feel like I need to penalize anyone in the live. I would say that if I was offering this to a hybrid course and I had asynchronous or any students who I couldn't monitor them as closely, I might be more willing to say, I really need to see that scrap in order to give you full credit. But I haven't really run into that situation. I've had more or less everybody when I assigned this, everybody kind of did what they needed to do. Is there anything else that people want to see before I stop sharing? Anything else you wanted to take one more look at, or are we good to stop sharing and just finish off here?
I don't see any other questions coming in. So if there are questions, please add them into the chat or unmute yourself. We can go ahead and wrap things up then here for this session. So thank you so much, Professor Stoudt, for all the valuable information you shared with us today.
Oh, and Kristen, I'm going to put the link for the Teachers Pay Teachers thing that I mentioned.
Great.
So I'll
Yes,
put that
please do. Thank you. Yes. If you have any remaining questions, please feel free to stop by the Hawks virtual booth where you can speak with a member of our Hawks team. The next session will begin at 11 a.m. Eastern time. You can view the chat here in just a minute for the session meeting room link and the Teachers Pay Teachers link, or you can access our conference website for a complete list of sessions and their descriptions. While accessing the conference website, don't forget to swing by the virtual booth to say hello to the Hawks team. Here you can view a quick 5-minute demonstration and be entered to win a $50 Amazon gift card. We'll see you at your next session, and we'll give you just a minute to add the link here into the chat, Jennifer.